Hello and welcome to Uncommon Law, my podcast about true stories from my life experience of over 50 years as a lawyer and trial judge. This is a look at the law from the inside out, stuff they don't teach in law school. This is Judge Rudy Greco, retired justice of the New York State Supreme Court. Lawyers are colloquially known as mouthpieces for their clients, coming from the idea that lawyers want their clients to keep quiet and let the lawyer do all the talking because almost invariably the client is liable to say the wrong thing and could be incriminating or very damaging to the case. So it's a good idea to keep them quiet. But that doesn't always work out that way. Now, in New York City, the daily liquor consumption and alcohol consumption for beer, wine, liquor, and what have you, consumed by the citizens could probably fill a lake. The revenue from drinking alcohol on a daily basis in New York City probably equals the annual budget of a small country. And there are two regulatory agencies, that oversee the licensing and conduct of the sale of alcohol, whether it be in a bar, a restaurant, or a cafe, or a bodega, grocery store. Doesn't matter, catering establishment. One of them is the SLA, the State Liquor Authority, which issues the licenses. They review all the applications and issue the licenses. And the other one is the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, the ABC, which supposedly enforces the everyday rules and conduct of these businesses. My best friend applied for a liquor license. He was buying a bar and restaurant, and he had to wait 4 months after going through trial by ordeal in submitting the endless applications and the detailed applications that you have to submit for this nonsense. It's crazy. He waited 4 months for the interview. And when you get to the interview, the most important thing you can have is bank records showing the income that you're using to buy the business for the last 6 months. So basically your finances, if you're doing any of this, is tied up for about 10 months. You can't do anything with that money unless you're a very, very wealthy person. And the whole idea behind this is the SLA is looking that there be making life difficult for hidden partners, which really means organized crime, which never has a problem with this whole procedure because they use fronts. They get people, legitimate people, whether they're family members, business associates, or paid straw men, to stand out and say they own the place and use their money and everything else, and they pay them off, and they take over the places anyway and run them. Still, the State Liquor Authority is obsessed with good optics, and they give everybody a very, very hard time to get a liquor license. And it's a good, at this point, to understand my friend's particular background, and because that bears on all of this and his license application. He's the son of Italian immigrant parents. His father was a World War II Army veteran who came out of the Army, and in 1946, after the war, went into the carding business in Queens. Why did he go into the carding business? Well, a couple of good reasons. First of all, he didn't want to work for anybody else. He wanted to be in his own business and be his own boss. Second, it didn't take a lot of money to be in the business. All you needed was basically a truck or a wagon and a horse. And third, it's hard work. It was a wide open field because the work is very hard. It's a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of odious material that you have to handle. People were not exactly lined up to get into this business. Well, he jumped into the business and he started the company, and it lasted for 10 years. He was going along and making a decent living, not anything extravagant at all. It was a lot of hard work, but he was making at least a living, and he supported his wife and his 2 children. And this went on until the mid-1950s, when lightning struck. 10 years after he started in the business, lightning struck in the form of a mayoral decision by then Mayor Robert Wagner, stating that the city would no longer collect commercial refuse. They would leave all the businesses in the city to make contracts for their own waste removal with private companies. That was the goose that laid the golden egg. Now, the whole carting business took on a whole new dimension with all these new market that was just created for them, and it became an inviting proposition. Now, the city, when they did that, they set up some rules governing commercial carting about licensing and everything else, and they set up all these little Mickey Mouse rules, but they actually, in fact, did very little oversight. In fact, they left the door wide open for the mafia, who came in, and in the form of countywide trade waste associations, as they used to call them, established cartels. And these cartels would set prices, they would settle disputes over territory or customers, and take a cut of everybody's business in the form of dues to the association. And it was very lucrative for them and very comfortable for everybody else. Now, if you were in the business, like my friend's father, you had a choice. Either you go along with this, or they eat you alive. If they don't kill you, they just eat your business up and put you out of business, and you had no recourse because they would start muscling you and your clientele and everybody else that's involved around and take over. So if you wanted to survive, you joined the association and you went along with to get along. Well, the business did very, very well, and it grew exponentially. And my friend eventually took over from his father. He decided that the business looked a little more inviting from his standpoint. He was a college-educated guy, but the business was profitable, and it was a good business. And he knew that there was, if he put his head to it, there was ways that he could economize and streamline the business to make it even more profitable than it was. And it was inviting. So he went into the business and he did that, and he made money. He made enough money over the years to accumulate, after a time, some money, and he wanted to get into something a little more appealing or a little more glamorous in the form of a business, because the carting business always had a cloud over it, and rightfully so, under the circumstances. And he was kind of tired of that, and he always wanted to buy a bar restaurant, and the opportunity came up for a nice place that was in his budget. And he made these application, and he went through the onerous process that I had mentioned before, and it came time for him to be interviewed. At which point I accompanied him, and the SLA interviewer was this old quintessential political hack who's the investigator. And there was nothing wrong with the application, but this guy kept repeating the same questions over and over about my client's background. And my client is a very easygoing and quite a patient guy, and he was used to the innuendo that was floating around the room, because he had been in the carting business all those years, and there was an innuendo involved with that business. And as I said, rightfully so. But I was not used to that sort of thing, and I became particularly annoyed. And this guy kept going and going and going back to the same nonsense, and I lost my patience. And in a fit of exasperation, I said, "Look, you're going back and forth with this stuff, and we're going nowhere fast. You're repeating the same questions. We're giving you the same answers. Then you're not satisfied, so something's bothering you. So now I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth of the matter is, Carlo Gambino died and left a trust fund for my friend to come and buy this restaurant, okay? And we're using the Carlo Gambino Trust as the funds to apply for this license. Now that you know the truth, I'm sure that we're going to get the license right away." And I picked up my papers and my client, and we walked out. And I guess the guy was embarrassed because he knew I was offended, and I was justly offended in this particular case. Well, the license came through. A year or two later, I represented another applicant at the SLA for a license, and this was quite a different story. This one is a woman, Anna, who was a local Queens lady. She was a barmaid, but she was 55 years old, and her looks were fading. She was an attractive lady, but her looks were fading, and she knew that a 55-year-old barmaid's future was quite limited. And to help herself and safeguard her future, She had money that she had saved, and she wanted to buy a small neighborhood bar in the neighborhood where she had worked as a barmaid. Everybody knew her. She had a big personality. She was a lot of fun and an outgoing gal. And so she made this application, and I told her, Anna, whatever you do when we go to this interview, keep quiet. Don't say anything. I mean, they can get annoying. I've had experience there, and they get annoying with all of this stuff. But you got to hold your tongue and be patient. So the big day came for the interview, and Anna shows up and meets me, and she's all dressed up in her going to Atlantic City happy garb. She's got a mink stole and her cat's eye eyeglasses or sunglasses with the rhinestones, and a form-fitting dress and her high heels, and the cigarette dangling from her mouth. And we go into the interview, and again, there's another old political hack investigator that's been there he's older than dirt, this guy. He's been there for 100 years. And he starts going over, and he says, what about the money, and where's the money? She says, look, here's the money. Here's my bank account. It's been there for years now. You have the records, and that's money that I saved up over the years. And plus, there's a small loan, which you can see the check is from my daughter, so I can buy this place. I'm buying this place because this is my security for my old age. Nobody wants to do business with it. What am I going to do as a 55-year-old barmaid? She said, so owning a place is give me a little security now in as I get older, and this, for me, is very important. Well, he kept asking questions, just like the other guy asked my friend questions. He kept sticking to, well, the money, and the money, and the money, and then the answers were all the same. Finally, Anna said, why are you, she was exasperated as I had been in the prior instance. Why do you keep asking me the same questions? I've answered these things, and you keep answering. Why do you keep asking me the same questions? He said, well, ma'am, he said, we have to be careful here. We don't want organized crime to infiltrate these businesses. So we want to check everybody's background and check it twice to make sure that everybody is clean. She says, oh, really? So you don't want organized crime? Now I understand. So I'm going to ask you a question now. He says, okay, what's that? She says, how come Matty the Horse owns every bar and restaurant in Manhattan, and he's a gangster? And the old guy just looked, folded up his papers. He says, well, I think this interview is over. And we got the license in about 3 or 4 weeks after that. And the point is, sometimes saying the wrong thing is just the right thing to say. Thanks for listening. Come back next week for another episode of Uncommon Law, lessons they don't teach in law school. I'm Judge Rudy Greco. Court is adjourned.